Hello, welcome. I'm here with Barbara to tell you all about a brand new Pacific edition of All About That Place. You'll find out more as we chat. So, I'm Ruth. I'm the Events and Education Manager here at the Society of Genealogists. And Barbara, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Barbara Tien here in Berkeley, California, and I call myself the ringleader at Projectkin. I say ringleader because, of course, it's really all about our membership and all of the different kinds of activities going on at any given time. I'm not sure whether I'm really a juggler or a master of ceremonies, but either way, there's always a lot going on.
The ringleader can be all those things. I think that's such a great title. I love it.
People seem to like it.
Yeah. So, for those who haven't come across it yet, tell us all about Project Kin. What is it?
Project Kin came about out of a appreciation for how we tell stories. I think I have personally had the extraordinary gift of amazing genealogical research that had been done both by my grandmother, her mother, and her mother-in-law, coincidentally, all of whom were DAR members. That's the Daughters of the American Revolution. Sorry, blue coats, red coats, all that. And that meant that there were very careful data collected about lineage as it dated back at least as far as the American Revolution. And of course, once you get going, you keep on going. So I had the genealogical research, which it feels to me as though it builds a scaffolding. And then the interesting part is the stories that come in between. I grew up largely outside of the United States, and came to California to go to college and have lived here. But my family history really dates back to some of the great migrations of Americans across this continent, from New England to North Carolina and out into the Midwest, places like Indiana and Kansas, Missouri. So for me, it was about the stories. And I realized I had a career really in technology. I'm in Silicon Valley. Berkeley is technically not, but we're across the bay from San Francisco down the peninsula, went to Stanford. So blah, blah, blah. Tech happened while I was here. I was in the middle of it with a career in networking and telecom. So I have the chops to rattle off acronyms like the best of them. Um, but in this stage of my life, I realized I was much more interested in the storytelling part. I'm not a particularly good storyteller, but I do know my way around the tech. And so after a most recent iteration of my startup life, did not succeed. We took the platform offline. I realized we had a community. And the community was all about storytelling in pictures, storytelling in digital forms. So that's what I wanted to pursue with Project Kin, is to help people get their stories told. And now I realize that I'm on a fervent mission to get stories told. And I think technology, or really creative support, can help people find the ways to tell the stories, because it doesn't have to be the huge lift of scholastic writing, which is
Mm.
great and important, but that's not the only way. The most important thing is to get the story told, even
Yeah.
the fractured stories. So that's what I do.
And you don't have to plan an entire novel. Does it?
No,
It can
with
be there's all sorts
citations
of ways.
in the
Yeah.
right form. But it helps, but it doesn't have to be.
Yeah. And so we are launching the Pacific edition of All About That Place. Why and
That
what is
kind of
it?
happened. That kind of
Exactly.
happened because you folks are so generous. That's why. I came along and I joined in on All About That Place last year, and I was smitten. I was smitten by a couple of things. First was, this was my first introduction to the whole idea of one place studies. I think it had tickled the edges of my Twitter feed, in previous years, but it felt very serious and over my head. And then the all about that place, 10 days celebrating 10 years for 10 talks a day or 10 minutes. It was just such a brilliant combination of ways to, pardon the expression, democratize the whole idea, tell people it's okay, just do it.
Yep.
And that's so consistent with what we're all about. And so when I saw that happening, I also realized that while there are a smattering of one place studies in the fabulous Society of One Place Studies global matrix of where these studies are, registrations of studies, there are something like fewer than 50 in the United States, specific, or maybe that's all of the Americas. And there's one in California, which is about 100 miles north of me. And that just seems so wrong. And as I thought about it further, I realized that certainly all of the programs are lovely and give me this fabulous worldview of how the English see England, how the Scottish see Scotland, how deep into Wales. And yet it's not personal to me. It's too
Mm-hmm.
far away. But what's personal to me? I want to know about my house. I know it's built in 1914. What's it? How? Why? Who
Mm.
lived here? And that's, 100 years. That's a drop in the bucket. Um, but then as I thought about it further, I realized that for so many of us in the Anglophone world, we are the English diaspora all the way to Western Australia,
Mhm.
Singapore, across the Pacific, here in the Americas, the United States and Canada, to a certain extent, down into Mexico as well, the Caribbean, um, all across South Africa, all across the planet. And most of us, certainly here I can speak for the United States, we just typically have moved many, many places in a lifetime and very frequently do not live in the same town today that our grandparents lived in. In fact, Krista McCullough recently asked a question: do you know the names of your four grandparents, full names of your four grandparents, never mind your great grandparents? And do you know where they lived? Americans often don't know because I, I personally traveled so much as a kid. I had glancing meeting of my maternal grandfather, never knew the rest of them.
Mm.
It's sad just
Really
because we
sad.
weren't here.
Mm.
And, we just didn't fly around that much. And we lived in Latin America just to
Mm.
do that. And yet I am the inheritor of this incredible genealogical research that my grandmother did. And she didn't really ever know me. So that just
Mm.
gives this worldview to me of what about all the rest of us? So I knocked on your door and said, hey, what if we were to do the Pacific Edition? And the reason I call it Pacific Edition is a little bit of a self-interest to what we do here in, the California worldview, where 4 p.m. here is midnight in London. And that's just such a perfect symmetry.
Yeah.
And 4 p.m. here is 7 a.m. in Western Australia, noon, depending on time zones and daylight savings time, noon in New Zealand.
Mm.
And so you just get that saying, wait a minute, we're right here. And we cover both directions if you count all of the Americas in the Pacific.
Yeah.
Then, yeah, you're the other side of the planet. There's sort of three sides of the planet if you look at it that way, from a time zones and
Yeah.
24 hours and 8 hours. But anyway, um, that's what led to it. And a little conversation back and forth. You were gracious enough to let me do things our way because, hey, I got a lot of plates in the air. I know how to do it one way. So, again, I'm one person. So I'm doing these. You're doing 10 events with 12 events per day for 10
14.
days.
14 talks a day.
14 now. So I'm doing 1 hour long event per day for 5 days during those 10, which since we have daylight, we have an international dateline, that counts as two. Well, sort of.
Yeah.
And I'm inviting multiple speakers per 1 hour session. And I've invited the speakers to add a little flexibility that they don't have with programs done for you. So I'm letting them speak up to 40 minutes. So generally I have 2 speakers per hour, and generally the talks are either 10 to 20, or 2 20s or a 10 and a 40, something like that. Actually, it's 10 and a 30. So we have time for discussion, because what can you do? You can do something different in a
Yeah.
live session. You can have a conversation and get to know people. So we're setting it up that way. And speakers, generally speaking, don't know each other at all. They are ranging from Australia to all the way, in fact, some from London.
Yeah.
But in addition to that, I've also realized I have a regular program called the Members Corner. And Members Corner was started as a way for my members to publish things without the trouble of creating their own Substack. At Projectkin, we use substack.com as essentially the platform that I don't have to pay for to be able to do all of this service for free. And it is not huge lift, but it is a lift to figure out how to create your own Substack in order to publish an article, just like creating your own website is not nothing. So I say, you know what? You want to publish something? Come on down. Send me your Word files. Send me your image files. I don't even care if it's Word. I don't have Word. Send it to me in any rich text format. I'll deal with the rest. And that's what started it. And I can also do any kind of media from no one's tried PowerPoint. I could do that too, but generally any kind of recorded media like audio files or video files. And I publish them into a section of Projectkin and celebrate them as I release them one at a time. I do a little bit of editing, add a little value, give it a little razzmatazz with a little social media love. And that's what I call the Members Corner. So I said, fine, let's do a Members Corner for All About That Place too. So basically, September and October for me are all about All That Place.
Fantastic. That just sounds so much fun. And so even if you're one of the people like me who giving a talk is just terrifying, there is still a way to get involved and share your stories. And yeah, I'm the organizer. I
Absolutely.
don't do the talks.
Yeah, fear on doing talks is kind of how I started my career. I was the one with the trembling paper and the looking down until I finally learned to put the paper down. And that got me pretty far of the way. And doing
Yeah.
everything over Zoom, it's just a conversation. And I think recorded talks is actually much harder because you have time to worry about everything.
Yes.
When you do it live, it doesn't matter. I'm past it now. Let's just keep on going.
Yep.
And I think that's a lot of what we try to present and give people comfort in doing that.
I know some of the speakers for All About That Place have gathered an audience to record their talk, so they're not just talking to themselves. They've got a live audience or a Zoom audience watching.
Absolutely.
They're not in the recording, but they're there, and so it's
Yeah.
just one technique that people have found that makes that process just that little bit easier. So
Yeah. And by the way, that whole idea is a great example to me of how we take a technology solution and apply it to projects.
Mm,
You have a story you want your grandfather to tell. He feels like an idiot having a camera in his face. But what is this? This is a studio.
yeah,
Using Zoom is a studio. Put them on the other side of a Zoom and talk to them, and all of a sudden they're recording a story, which is brilliant.
it's
And
wonderful, isn't it?
so I think understanding the human factors that affect storytelling can get the stories told.
So Pacific Edition is live. So how do you join in with that? How can you take part?
Great point, because it's very different than just
Mm,
going to YouTube.
yes.
So the programs are live, which means that you do need to register. Anybody that's used Zoom since the pandemic knows what a Zoom bomb is. So we don't want to have that happen. Been there, done that, not going back. So what we do is we do ask people to register, try to make that super easy to register. It's of course completely free. You do have to register in order to get a personal link that brings you into the session. And all you do is go to projectkin.org/AATP24. And once there, you'll find all of the articles about what we're doing. That's where our recorded articles will also start to appear. And I'm going to actually add an easier way to get to our event calendar. Event calendar is across the top. It's something that says events. Once you go to events, you can tag through our whole calendar and you'll get there. But I'm creating a new article that'll be up shortly where you can just go straight to all of the events as little tiles and come on in. It's easy.
Fantastic. So you have to register, but if you've missed the boat, you can watch it recorded using
Exactly.
the
And
same link. Yeah.
that's right. Our recordings should be live on projectkin.org, as I said, at the AATP 24, but also through your gracious support, will also be posted to the YouTube channel and the Facebook.
We will.
And we are working through the magic of cloud technology to make that happen as
Yes.
partners.
Yes. Some of those details have to be sorted out, but yes, they will be there.
Hey, it's done is done, right?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So what about all about that place are you most looking forward to? There is so much. What's the most exciting part for you?
You know, it's kind of like how you were asking me about what was it that got me excited about it in the first place, and I was reflecting back on last year. As I said, it was a surprise to me. Each thing was a surprise that would get me so excited. Um, I think coming in this year, it's hard for me not to be a little bit selfish in thinking about our Pacific edition and
Mm.
these live sessions. We have some wonderful talks coming, including a fabulous historian I met on Substack who does a fabulous newsletter called Non-Boring History, which is
A great name.
hysterical. She is a Scot who has become an expert in early American history, not just an expert, but a professor, a tenured professor in early American history. And these days, she devotes her time to touring America in her van between Madison, Wisconsin, and wherever else is interesting. And she's going to be doing a talk about small museums,
Oh,
little
wonderful.
local museums, and really how
Mhm.
to get the most out of those kinds of experiences. I'm disappointed, but maybe someday we can get a talk on the New Deal, the Living New Deal, which is actually a program ironically run out of here in Berkeley, about the WPA programs that were in effect under Roosevelt all across the country and the different kinds of projects that that led to. Some of which include things like building hotels and lodges at Timberline or at Yosemite, and some of these
Mm.
incredible frescoes, things like that all over the country. But we have another guy talking about burial sites in New York City, which is amazing. So I'm thrilled by the range of talks and the kinds of things those are coming in. I'm also right now working on my own talk for the regular program, which will be recorded, thankfully, because my hands are full. But really talking about why and how to rethink your storytelling as projects. And also to an extent, a little bit what I was saying earlier about how I think place is different when your home today is so far from where your ancestors were home, and how home today, even today, was not the same as what it was 10 years ago
Mm.
or 30 years ago, or where your grandparents were buried. I mean, it's just this sense of expanse that we have here in California, and
Mm.
I know it's shared in Australia and Canada. It's funny as we compare notes, many of us really share that very much in common over even as we share language and historical roots back to Britain.
Mm.
I'm
Excellent.
jealous I don't have my cat with me. She's sleeping over there.
No, no, mine's just run off.
Exactly.
She's got fed up with hearing about it. I think for
Something
the
we all
rest
seem
of
to
us,
have in
it's,
common.
yeah, I think it's so exciting. So thank you, Barbara. We're really looking forward to having the Pacific edition this year. It's a
Thank you. So maybe
great
next year
benefit.
we can grow it even bigger and support more events and more programs.
Wouldn't that be good?
It's Yeah, I mean, I think it's entirely possible. I think the connection to formal genealogy societies and organizations is more important today than ever, and I
Mm,
think has the potential to take on new roles as we experience connections in very different ways.
yeah,
All going to meet on Tuesdays at the society offices is insane. It just doesn't even make sense.
it's
But
not the way the world works anymore, is it? But
right. So that means that our world is actually bigger.
mm,
And with my own roots going back 9 generations, 10 generations, 7 generations in the Americas, and then into almost all England. I think
mm,
there was a brush on the way to America through Ireland, and a few Scots who were indentured servants brought to America as prisoners of war.
yeah,
Fascinating stories, and I am thrilled to see those come together as we look at these kinds of connections. Those are just mine. There are so many, in the Americas who came from places during the Industrial Revolution, from, Manchester and all of the great
mm,
cities in England. It's
yeah.
just fascinating.
Whereas
So
my
much more
ancestors were
ahead.
all the my ancestors were all the scared ones who stayed in England and didn't leave. And
Nah,
their
you were
brothers
all the
and
kings
sisters
and
went, but mine
queens and
stayed here.
landholders. You're all in the castles. We know, we know.
No, very much the agricultural labourers, but but it's been wonderful speaking to you. Thank you, Barbara.
It's a pleasure. We'll look forward to talking to you further. Till then,
Yes. Bye bye.
bye bye.